Drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My wife always preached feminism while living off me, refused to fulfill my needs, so I cut her off. And what followed shattered her perfect image. My name is James. I met Megan, my wife, a 32-year-old brunette, during my third year of community college. I was studying construction management, working part-time at a lumberyard to pay my tuition. She was in her senior year at the state university, double majoring in women's studies and business. Way out of my league, honestly. But somehow she noticed me when I was delivering supplies for the new student center being built on her campus. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags from the beginning. On our first date, I took her to this little family-owned Italian place. Nothing fancy, but the food was incredible: fresh pasta, homemade sauce, the works. She looked around the cozy dining room with its checkered tablecloths and candles, then said, "This place is quaint." Quaint, I repeated, half laughing, half worried. "Yeah," she went on, swirling her wine, "like something my grandparents might like. There's this rooftop place downtown. It's got a view of the skyline, you know? That's where important people network." It stung a bit, but she laughed at my jokes the rest of the night, reached across the table to touch my arm, and damn, she was the most beautiful woman who'd ever looked at me twice. I couldn't believe my luck. We dated for 2 years before getting married. During that time, she was all about her career ambitions, breaking glass ceilings, climbing corporate ladders, running the show. I was all in on supporting her. I worked overtime to help pay for her grad school applications, sat with her while she rehearsed interview answers, even drove her to networking events when her car broke down. I was so damn proud to be with someone so driven. But after we got married at 25, things changed. Not all at once, more like water wearing down a rock, bit by bit. Her big ambitions somehow shrank into expensive tastes and zero effort. The first job she landed after graduation was office manager at a small marketing firm. She lasted 3 months before quitting. I remember that night clearly. She came home slamming her bag on the kitchen counter. "Can you believe it?" she fumed. "My boss actually asked me to make coffee for a client meeting." I tried to reason with her. "Megan, that's just part of being new on the job sometimes. I mean, you're still in the door. You can work your way up." She glared at me. I didn't get a double major to fetch coffee like some secretary. Meanwhile, I was busting my butt. I'd worked up from basic construction to crew leader, then assistant project manager. 60-plus hour weeks, dirt under my fingernails even with the promotion. "Megan?" She bounced between a few receptionist gigs, never lasting more than a couple of months. It was always the same story. "They're sexist," she'd say. "The office is toxic. They don't understand work-life balance." Meanwhile, I kept grinding. We bought our first place together. Technically, I bought it. My down payment. My mortgage. About 4 years ago now. It was nothing fancy, just a decent 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood with good schools nearby. I was trying to think ahead. Kids, maybe someday. The first time Megan walked through the front door, she didn't even pause to take it in. She ran her hand over the countertop in the kitchen, wrinkled her nose. "This is so 2010, she said. I laughed, thinking she was joking. "It's solid granite, Megan. Looks fine to me." She shook her head. "We'll have to redo it. White quartz, maybe. And the backsplash is dated." I tried to change the subject. "Come check out the master bedroom, plenty of space." She barely glanced at the closet. "We'll need to redo the master bath too," she said, crossing her arms. "I deserve a soaking tub." I didn't mind at first. I figured she wanted to make our house a home, you know? Nothing wrong with wanting to put your own stamp on things. But then I realized she had zero intention of doing any of the work herself. None. These were jobs for professionals, meaning expensive contractors, never something her husband, who literally manages construction projects for a living, could handle on weekends. By year 5 of our marriage, I'd worked my way up to managing major development projects, overseeing millions in budgets, dozens of workers, juggling all the moving parts that keep a site from going to hell. My salary had more than doubled since we got married. I thought we'd finally have a cushion, save for a family someday, maybe put a little away for a kid's college fund down the line. Megan? She saw it as her personal shopping fund. A typical day for me. I drag myself out of bed at 5 a.m., get in a quick workout to keep my stress from boiling over, then be on site by 7 o'clock. I'd spend the whole day solving problems, subcontractors fighting over deliveries, inspectors dragging their feet, a supplier trying to switch out materials on us, and I was the guy keeping it all from going sideways. By the time I got home around 7 p.m., my back would be killing me from walking the site, my head pounding from reading blueprints all day, and my hands still calloused despite technically being management now. All I wanted, literally the only damn thing I wanted, was to walk through that door to a decent meal, and a wife who acted happy to see me. Instead, I'd find Megan sprawled on our leather couch that I paid for, scrolling Instagram or glued to some trash reality show about rich housewives. The living room would be littered with shopping bags from places where a single t-shirt cost more than some of my guys made in a whole day. The house looked like a war zone. Dishes piled in the sink, laundry dumped everywhere, takeout containers overflowing from the trash can. If I asked about dinner, she wouldn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, I ordered DoorDash," she'd say. "Should be here in like 30 minutes. DoorDash again." I'd rub my temples. "Couldn't we just?" She cut me off, still scrolling. "You can Venmo me for your half. Venmo me for your half." Let that sink in. This was a woman sitting in a house I paid for, in clothes I bought her, living off groceries I'd stocked, with zero job, zero income, and she wanted me to Venmo her for my share of takeout because she couldn't be bothered to cook. The first few times, I just did it. Transferred her the money without comment. I was too damn tired to fight. But each time it happened, this knot in my stomach twisted tighter. We used to have sex regularly when we first got married. Nothing wild, just normal, healthy intimacy. But that had dwindled to maybe once a month, and even then, always on her terms, always when she wanted something. I started seeing the pattern. She'd get extra affectionate, act sweet, then a day later hit me with, "Oh, I saw this bag on sale. James, I really need it." On the rare occasions she did cook, she'd act like she deserved a damn medal. "I spent hours making this pasta, James," she'd say, all proud. "Hours." I'd glance at the pot. "Megan, it's box pasta with Jared sauce and frozen meatballs." She'd huff, like I'd kicked her dog. "Still, it's a lot of work. 20 minutes, tops." Meanwhile, my mom, who worked part-time as a school secretary, nothing fancy, still managed to have hot meals on the table every night of my childhood. I'm not saying I expected some 1950s housewife situation. I don't mind cooking or cleaning. I grew up with 2 brothers, so I knew how to take care of myself. I didn't need someone to baby me. But come on, I was working 12-hour days, commuting another hour each way, while she was doing what? Watching Netflix, shopping, having lunch with her friends, most of whom were either living off their husbands or pulling from trust funds. The breaking point was coming. I just didn't see it yet. It all came to a head one Friday in July. I had just closed a massive deal, a new mixed-use development downtown. We'd managed to bring it in under budget despite all the supply chain nightmares since COVID. My boss had pulled me aside that afternoon, shook my hand, and told me I was being considered for senior project manager. That would bump me into solid 6 figures. For a guy who started as a basic laborer with a 2-year degree, this was the big leagues. I was damn ecstatic driving home. I even stopped to pick up dessert, cannoli from this old-school bakery, thinking maybe Megan and I could celebrate, maybe reconnect a little. Maybe this would remind her of the team we used to be. I walked in the door at 6:30 p.m., which was early for me, calling out, "Babe, I'm home." Got some amazing news. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone as usual. She barely glanced up. "Hey, there's no food. I wasn't expecting you back so early." I held up the dessert box. "I thought we could celebrate. The downtown project came in under budget, and Phillips is considering me for senior PM." She set her phone down, "Progress, I guess," and looked at me blankly. "Oh, that's nice," she said. "What does that mean exactly?" I started explaining about the bonus, how the promotion would put me over 6 figures, what it would mean for us, for the future. As I talked, I could see it, the gears turning behind her eyes, calculating how much more she could spend. Not once did she say she was proud of me. Not once did she acknowledge the blood and sweat that had gone into pulling off that project. Instead, she said, "That's perfect timing because there's this feminist podcast panel discussion in Chicago this weekend. All the big names will be there. It's like $500 for tickets, plus a hotel. But with your bonus coming," she trailed off, waiting for me to fill in the blanks. I felt my jaw clench. "This weekend," I was hoping we could celebrate together. Maybe go to dinner at Giovanni. That was our first date spot. Still my favorite place in town. She made a face, like I'd suggested we eat out of a dumpster. "Giovanni? That place is so basic, James. Besides, this panel is important for my networking. They're discussing the modern female experience in corporate America." I couldn't help myself. It just slipped out. "What would you know about corporate America? You haven't held a job for more than 3 months in years." Her eyes went ice cold, narrowed in a flash. "Excuse me? That's incredibly insensitive. You know how toxic the workplace is for educated women. The microaggressions alone." I cut her off, setting the dessert box down on the coffee table, my hands shaking a bit. "We need to talk about how things are going." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might stick that way. "About what?" "Now, I'm trying to relax." I took a breath, trying to keep my voice steady. About this, I said, gesturing around at the mess. Takeout boxes, dirty dishes, piles of laundry that never seemed to move. About our marriage. I feel like I'm carrying everything while you're just along for the ride. The look she gave me could have frozen hell. Excuse me? Are you seriously bringing up this patriarchal woman does housework crap? I didn't marry you to be your maid or your personal chef. If you want someone to clean up after you, why don't you hire one with your big manly paycheck? I nearly choked. This isn't about gender roles, Megan. This is about partnership. I work my butt off all day and you contribute nothing. Not money, not effort, not even basic appreciation. Her spine went ramrod straight, eyes blazing. I contribute plenty. I manage our social life. I keep us connected to people that can boost your career. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to be a woman in today's society? The emotional labor alone. Emotional labor. I cut her off, the words sharper than I intended. I've got guys at work breaking their backs every single day, coming home to help their wives with dinner, with kids, with life. This isn't about your gender, Megan. This is about you being lazy and entitled. Her voice shot up an octave, practically screeching. Lazy? You think I'm lazy? You have no idea what I do all day. Just because I'm not out playing in the dirt with your construction buddies doesn't mean I'm not working. I'm maintaining our image, our social standing. I laughed, but there was no humor in it, just bitterness. The only image you're maintaining is on Instagram, pretending to be some boss babe while spending money you didn't earn. Her face turned bright red as she stood up, practically shaking. You're just threatened by a strong woman who knows her worth. My father would never speak to my mother this way. I let out a heavy sigh, tired to my bones. Your father is a corporate lawyer who makes 7 figures, Megan. And your mother actually raised you and your sisters while running a charity foundation. They're not exactly comparable to our situation. I knew it was a low blow the second it left my mouth. Her parents had never really approved of me, the blue-collar guy who was never quite good enough for their princess. Sure, they'd paid for our wedding, but the way they'd looked at me that day, like Megan was settling, had never fully left my mind. And sometimes, late at night, I wondered if Megan felt the same way. She glared at me like I'd kicked a puppy. I can't believe you're attacking me like this on a Friday night when all I wanted was to relax. This is borderline abusive. She grabbed her phone and stormed off, slamming the bedroom door so hard the frames on the wall rattled. I stood there in the messy living room, staring at the unopened dessert on the coffee table, mocking me. Finally, I grabbed a soda from the fridge and went to sit on the back deck, staring out at the yard I'd landscaped myself over weekends while Megan was off at self-care appointments. As I sat there in the growing darkness, something shifted deep inside me. This wasn't a rough patch. This wasn't just a bad day. This was my life. Working myself to exhaustion to fund a lifestyle for someone who didn't appreciate it, didn't contribute to it, and apparently resented me for even asking. That was the reality. For the first time, I really let myself think about whether I wanted to live like this for the next 40 years. The answer was so clear, it almost took my breath away. No damn way. That night, I slept on the couch. Didn't even bother trying to talk to her. In the morning, I woke up to find she'd already left, her passive-aggressive way of punishing me. My phone buzzed with a credit card notification. $600 at Nordstrom, 8:15 a.m. Message received loud and clear. Cross me, and I'll make you pay. Little did she know, I was done paying. The rest of the weekend, Megan gave me the silent treatment. Only broke it to toss out some passive-aggressive comment whenever she happened to be home. Most of Saturday she was out with her friends, then came back loaded with shopping bags, making damn sure I saw each designer logo as she carried them upstairs. She paused by the stairs, holding up a shoebox like a trophy. I guess since you think I'm so worthless, you won't mind me buying these shoes to make myself feel better, she snapped, then turned her phone screen toward me, showing another $400 charge she'd just rung up. I said nothing, just let her climb the stairs with her attitude and her bags. Sunday morning, she waltzed into the kitchen, fresh as a daisy. I'm going to brunch with the girls, she announced, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Don't wait up, we might do a spa day after. I nodded, barely glancing up. Sure, because I already had a plan forming. The thing about managing construction projects is you learn to be methodical. You don't just swing a sledgehammer into a wall without knowing what's behind it. You assess, plan, execute, precisely. That was exactly how I was going to handle my marriage. While she was out spending more of my money with her so-called empowered friends, trust fund princesses, and other women living off their husbands while preaching independence, I sat down at my desk and really opened up our finances for the first time in months. What I found turned my stomach. We had less than $5,000 in savings. $5,000. Despite my good income, credit card debt totaled over $30,000 across 6 different cards. All of it from Megan's endless shopping and spa days. She'd even taken out a store card at Nordstrom I didn't even know about, maxed it out at $7,500, making minimum payments from our joint checking. I pulled bank statements for the past 6 months. On average, Megan was spending nearly $6,000 every month. On what? Clothes, restaurants, Uber Eats, Sephora, salon appointments, wellness treatments, whatever the hell those even meant. More clothes. Meanwhile, I hadn't bought new work boots in a year, even though the soles were practically worn through. Still hauling my gear in the same beat-up gym bag I'd used since college. And that fishing trip with my dad I'd been talking about for years, the one he'd asked about every time we spoke, kept getting postponed because we don't have the extra money right now, babe. That Sunday night, instead of blowing up at her when she came stumbling home tipsy from brunch at 7 p.m., no less, I made my move. While she was soaking in the bath upstairs, taking her sweet damn time with those expensive bath bombs I'd bought her for Christmas, I sat down at my laptop and went to work. First, I moved most of the money out of our joint account into a new account only I could access, leaving just enough behind to cover the mortgage and utilities for the next month. After that, I canceled every single one of her credit cards except for one, and set a $200 weekly limit on the remaining card. Then I set up purchase alerts for anything over $50. While I was at it, I checked our cell phone bill. There was a number I didn't recognize. She'd been texting it late at night, a lot. I didn't even open the messages. I couldn't handle knowing just yet, but I made a mental note of it. By the time she finished her hour-long soak and padded downstairs in a towel, her hair still dripping, she had her phone in her hand. "What the hell did you do?" she shrieked, holding up her screen so I could see a bunch of declined transaction notices. I didn't even stand up from the couch, where I was watching the baseball game. Just looked her dead in the eyes. "I adjusted your spending limits to match your contribution to this household." Her face cycled through shock, confusion, embarrassment, and finally settled on pure, blistering rage. "You can't do that," she shouted. "That's financial abuse. I'll call my sister's friend. She's a women's rights attorney." I kept my voice calm, steady, shocking even myself. "Go ahead," I said. "Explain to a judge how your husband paying every bill while you blow thousands on handbags is abuse. While you're at it, explain why you haven't held a job for more than 3 months in years." She sucked in a breath, her whole body shaking. "You're being a controlling scumsucker," she hissed. "A real man wouldn't treat his wife this way." I stood up, towering over her by nearly a foot, calm as I'd ever been in my life. "No," I said, "a real man wouldn't let his wife walk all over him anymore. You want to live like a princess? Start contributing like a partner." For the first time since I'd met her, Megan was speechless. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but no sound came out. Finally, she spun around and stormed back to the bathroom, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the hallway wall. That night, she slept in the guest room. I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, before I headed out to work, I left a note on the kitchen counter. "I've set up a budget that actually reflects our income and expenses. Your card has a $200 weekly limit for personal spending. If you want more, get a job. If you decide to contribute to our household, either financially or by taking care of the home, we can discuss adjusting the budget. This isn't negotiable." When I got home that evening, the note was ripped to absolute shreds on the kitchen counter. Megan was nowhere to be found. She didn't come home until long after I'd gone to bed, and that was the start of the Cold War between us. The next few weeks were eye-opening, to put it mildly. Without unlimited access to my bank account, Megan's true colors showed in a way I'd never seen before. The same woman who preached female independence and empowerment on social media. I checked, she was still posting those cheesy inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and never settling. Was falling apart behind closed doors because she couldn't buy every shiny thing she laid eyes on. One morning, she actually spoke to me, her first real conversation in days. "My friends invited me to brunch at Westfields," she complained. Westfields, the place downtown where they charge $30 for avocado toast. What am I supposed to tell them? That my husband is too cheap to let me go? I didn't even pause packing my lunch, something I'd started doing to save every penny I could. "Tell them whatever you want," I said. "Or you could get a job and pay for your own brunch." "A job?" she repeated, like I'd just suggested she try eating gravel. "You know how I feel about the exploitative nature of capitalism." I nearly laughed. This, from a woman who had 13 designer handbags crammed into our closet. "Seems like you're fine with exploitation when it buys you nice things," I shot back, "just not when you actually have to work for them." She tried everything those next few weeks. Crying, screaming, guilt-tripping. She even tried to seduce me one night after weeks of no physical contact, the pattern I'd seen before, where affection was currency for her. When that didn't work, she switched tactics, started telling anyone who'd listened that I was abusive for putting her on a budget. That's when the phone call started. Her so-called feminist friends lighting me up, leaving voicemail after voicemail, lecturing me about toxic masculinity, about how restricting Megan financially was controlling behavior. One even said I was intimidated by a strong woman. I nearly laughed out loud at that one. There was nothing strong about throwing a tantrum because your husband expected you to behave like an adult. Then came the night I walked in to find Megan and 3 of her friends, the inner circle, perched in my living room like a jury waiting for me. Alice was there, twice divorced, constantly posting that men were trash. Rosie, who lived off her parents while pretending to run a wellness coaching business that barely covered a cell phone bill. And Kendra, actually a successful real estate agent. But Megan had told me after one too many wines that she'd been cheating on her husband for years. Sworn me to secrecy about that, of course. Alice wasted no time the second I stepped through the doorway. James, she started, crossing her arms with that holier-than-thou look, we're concerned about Megan. She's told us how you've been financially controlling her. I set my lunchbox down on the counter, didn't even bother taking off my work boots. That's an interesting perspective. Rosie jumped in right on cue. She has a right to financial independence, James. What you're doing is a classic abuse tactic. I looked at each of them, then settled my gaze on Megan, who was sitting there with a smug little smile, like she thought she'd checkmated me. You know what? You're right, I said, nodding slowly. Megan absolutely deserves financial independence. In fact, I encourage it. She should get a job, earn her own money, and spend it however the hell she wants. That's what independence means. Kendra actually shifted in her seat, looking a bit uncomfortable. It's not that simple, James. Marriage is a partnership. Your money is joint money. I raised an eyebrow. Funny how it's only joint money when she's spending it. I fired back. But when I'm working 60-hour weeks to earn it, it's just expected. Tell me something. If I quit my job tomorrow and sat around at home while Megan supported me, would you all be here defending my right to joint money then? That shut them up, at least for a moment. Megan saw the silence and jumped in, voice quivering with what I now recognized as pure theater. You're twisting things, James. I contribute in other ways. The emotional labor alone. I cut her off. What exactly is this emotional labor you keep talking about? I asked, calm but cold. Because from where I'm standing, I work all day, come home, cook my own meals, do my own laundry, and get exactly zero emotional support from you. So please, explain to me, and to your friends, exactly what labor you're contributing. Nothing. Total silence. Finally, Alice stood up, clutching her expensive designer purse, probably paid for by alimony from husband number 2. We're not going to stay here and watch you verbally abuse our friend. Fine by me. I shrugged. Megan, you might want to pack a bag, though. Alice's one-bedroom condo might get cramped after a while. Megan's mouth fell open, then snapped shut again. She stood, glaring at me, before finally stomping upstairs to pack some clothes and her precious toiletries. I waited by the door and locked it behind them after they left, and for the first time in months, the house felt quiet in a way I hadn't realized I missed. The real wake-up call, though, came about a month into this new arrangement. I'd gotten home early one day, concrete delivery got canceled last minute, supplier issues, and the second I stepped through the door, I knew something was off. I headed upstairs to find Megan in our bedroom, digging through my side of the closet. She practically jumped 3 feet when she saw me. In her hand was my grandfather's watch, the vintage Omega he'd given me before he passed. It wasn't worth a fortune, maybe a couple $1,000, but it was the only thing I had left of him. What are you doing with that? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. She straightened up quickly, the guilt on her face shifting to pure defiance in a heartbeat. I was just looking at it. I stepped closer, crossing my arms. You were trying to take it. She rolled her eyes, but her face turned bright red. Fine. I was going to sell it on eBay. I needed money for my hair appointment, she snapped, chin high like I was the one being unreasonable. You're being impossible with this budget. I have standards to maintain. I just stared at her. Honest to God, I could not believe what I was hearing. This woman, who I'd loved, supported, carried through every high and low, was ready to pawn my grandfather's watch for hair highlights. Give me the watch, I said, holding out my hand, my voice so calm it scared even me. She hesitated, hugging it close for a second, then finally shoved it at me with a dramatic huff. You're being ridiculous. It's just a watch. I gripped it tight, my jaw clenched. And you're being a thief. It's not just a watch, Megan. It's the only thing I have from my grandfather. But you don't care about that, do you? You only care about yourself. Oh, please, she scoffed, rolling her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. That night, I didn't take any chances. I drove straight to the bank and put my grandfather's watch and a few other things I cared about into a safe deposit box. Lying in the guest room, my permanent spot by then, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. It hit me hard. This marriage was done. There was no rescuing it. Either the woman I'd married had never actually existed, or she'd been swallowed up by this entitled, selfish stranger. But one thing was certain. I was not going to just walk away after years of being used. If this was ending, it would be on my terms. About 6 weeks into the new financial arrangement, I started to see the cracks in Megan's carefully curated boss babe persona. Her roots were growing out without her salon visits. Her nails chipped. Her designer wardrobe had started to cycle through more and more obviously because she couldn't buy new outfits to impress her brunch crowd. She tried living at Alice's for about a week, but apparently that had gone south. When she came back home, she barely muttered a word about it, just that she and Alice needed space. My best guess. Alice's hospitality only went as far as Megan could help foot the bill for dinners out and wine nights. One night, I was lying in the guest room, again, and heard Megan on the phone. She must have thought the shower running would drown her out, but the bathroom vent carried every word straight into my room. "It's so humiliating," she was whispering. "He's acting like I'm some gold digger after everything I've sacrificed for this marriage." I actually had to bite down on my fist to keep from laughing. Sacrificed? What exactly? Her illustrious career as a professional shopper? She sighed into the phone. "No, I've tried talking to him. He just doesn't get it. Being a wife is a full-time job. The emotional labor alone should be worth a salary." There it was again. That phrase, emotional labor. I'd Googled it after she'd first weaponized it against me, trying to see if maybe I was missing something. It meant remembering birthdays, keeping track of social events, running a household. Sure, valid enough. But Megan didn't do any of that. Hell, I was the one who remembered her mom's birthday every year, who called to get the furnace serviced, who made sure we didn't run out of toilet paper. Her voice dropped lower then, almost a defeated whine. "Well, I can't exactly just leave. My name's not on the house, and I've got nowhere to go. My parents already said they won't bail me out again after that whole credit card fiasco last year." I froze. Credit card fiasco? That was news to me. But it explained a lot, like why her parents had been so icy with her at Christmas, going on and on about responsibility, while she sulked. She kept talking, oblivious. I know, she sighed into the phone. "I'm working on him. He'll cave eventually. Men like him always do. They feel guilty. I just need to play nice for a bit. Make him think I'm trying." Something in me snapped hearing that, like a final nail being driven in. Right then and there, I decided to document everything. Every day before leaving for work, I started taking photos of the house, the dishes piled in the sink, the laundry baskets overflowing, the layer of dust on the furniture, and then again when I got home, showing nothing had changed. I kept every receipt for groceries, bills, utilities, anything I paid for, which was everything. I even started recording our conversations, especially the ones where she'd launch into another tirade demanding more money while refusing to lift a finger or get a job. Was it petty? Maybe. But my gut told me I'd need evidence when this whole charade finally blew up. The real turning point came when I got a fraud alert from our joint credit card company. Apparently, Megan had tried to open a new card in my name. Straight up identity theft. I confronted her that night, holding up the fraud alert letter. "What the hell is this, Megan?" She barely blinked. "It's not like we're not married," she shrugged, rolling her eyes. "What's yours is mine, right? Isn't that what you said in our vows?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, I also vowed to love and cherish you. Funny how you only remember the parts that benefit you." That night, I called a lawyer. The next morning, I went to a different bank, opened a brand new checking account, and rerouted my direct deposit there. I left just enough money in our joint account to cover the bills, not a cent more. I also went to the electronics store and bought a small camera, setting it up right on the bookshelf in the living room, plain as day next to our wedding photo, which felt like a cosmic joke at that point. When Megan came home and saw the blinking light, her face went red. "What the hell is that supposed to be?" "Security," I told her flatly. "I want to make sure nothing else goes missing from this house." She went ballistic. "That's a violation of my privacy. You're spying on me." I just looked her dead in the eye. "You tried to steal my identity to get a credit card. Trust is earned." That shut her up for a second. Around the same time, I finally got curious about that number she'd been texting so often. I checked the phone records. It was her ex-boyfriend from college, the trust fund golden boy her parents had always preferred, the one who dumped her senior year. The messages were pages long, whining about how miserable she was, how I didn't understand her, how maybe she'd made a mistake. I didn't confront her about it, just added those screenshots to my growing file. What Megan didn't know was that I'd already sat down with a divorce attorney, a total bulldog, the kind who'd seen every dirty trick in the book and specialized in protecting men in high-conflict divorces. She'd explained exactly what to expect, how to safeguard myself, and laid it out as clear as could be. The biggest mistake men make, she told me, leaning forward with this no-nonsense look, is leaving the house before legal proceedings begin. Stay put, my lawyer had said. Keep records. Do not leave the house, or she can claim abandonment. So that's what I did. I stayed, watched, documented, waited. It didn't take long for Megan to show her true colors again. 3 months into this new budget reality, she seemed to finally understand that her usual arsenal, the tears, the guilt trips, the manipulation, wasn't working anymore. So she shifted tactics. Suddenly, she was trying to cook, though everything was either raw in the middle or burned to a crisp. Trying to do chores, but half, like running a wet mop over sticky floors without actually moving any of the furniture. She even tried to initiate sex one night, slinking up to me in lingerie she'd no doubt bought with my money months before the credit freeze. I told her no, calmly, and watched the flicker of rage cross her face before she quickly covered it up with a wounded look. Honestly, the thought of touching her at that point made my stomach turn. How could I be intimate with someone who'd proven over and over how little she respected me? One evening, she was wiping down the counters with a flourish, trying to look domestic. I checked the fridge and pointed out a container of moldy leftovers stinking up the place. At least I damn tried, she snapped, throwing the rag down on the counter. God, nothing is ever good enough for you. That was the real Megan peeking through. Meanwhile, I was getting my life together. Up at 5 every morning to hit the gym, shedding 15 pounds of stress weight. Feeling like a man again. I'd started reconnecting with the guys she'd systematically pushed out of my life. My old construction buddies she'd once sneered at, my high school friend who was now a cop, even my cousin who lived in a trailer but was one of the most genuine people I'd ever known. And I kept meeting with my lawyer. She had everything ready. Screenshots of Megan's spending sprees, photos showing the dirty house day after day, the identity theft attempt, the text with her ex. She told me that although, in our state, assets are usually split 50-50, there was a good argument for an unequal split because of Megan's conduct. The house was only in my name. I'd bought it before we married, and Megan had never put a single cent toward the mortgage. My retirement was protected the same way. The debt was going to be harder, but my lawyer had a plan. Then, one night, what turned out to be our final week together, Megan came to me in the living room. Her eyes were red, tears clinging to her lashes, voice cracking. James, she said, sounding so small, so defeated. I know I've been terrible. You were right about everything. I was selfish, entitled. I took advantage of your hard work. Please, can we try again? I miss us. I'll get a job. I'll be better. For a split second, something in me wavered. The tremor in her voice, the way her shoulders shook, it almost looked real. Then her phone, left face up on the coffee table, lit up with a notification. Right there, plain as day, a preview from a dating app. She'd already been looking for her next meal ticket. That dating app notification told me everything I needed to know. I almost laughed in her face, but I held it together. I miss us, too, I told her, deciding to play along. I'd learned by now that sometimes you had to let them think they were winning. Maybe we can work this out. The relief on her face was almost enough to make me pity her. Almost. Really? She breathed out, her shoulders sagging with fake gratitude. Oh, James, I'm so glad. I promise things will be different. She leaned in to hug me, and I let her, returning it only halfway. We should talk about how we move forward, I said carefully, stepping back. Maybe make some concrete plans. She nodded eagerly, eyes shining with manufactured sincerity. Absolutely. Whatever you want. For starters, I continued, I think you should look for a job. Something stable with benefits, if you can. Nothing's beneath you at this point. Even retail or food service could be a start. I watched her face closely, and there it was, the flash of disgust, so quick most people would have missed it, before she forced a smile. Of course, she said, voice sweet as syrup. I've actually been looking at some administrative positions. My business degree should help with that. Great, I said. And we should probably come up with a chore chart for the house. Split responsibilities fairly. Another flicker of irritation crossed her features, gone in a blink. That makes sense, she said. Though, you know, I'm not great at cleaning. I just never really learned properly. I can teach you, I replied, giving her my blandest smile. It's not that complicated. She let out a weak laugh, but her eyes were dead flat. We kept going like that for a while, me laying out reasonable partnership terms, her nodding along, agreeing, clearly hating every second of it. Finally, I told her I was tired and headed to the guest room. You could sleep in our room tonight, she offered, trying out a look that used to work on me. I think we should take things slow, I said, keeping my voice even. Rebuild trust before jumping back into anything physical. She tried to hide her disappointment. Of course, whatever you need. As I closed the guest room door, I allowed myself a small smile. She really thought she was winning. She had no idea. 2 days later, she gave me her heartfelt apology, tears, shaking voice, the whole performance, and I acted convinced. I told her I had a full day of meetings, wouldn't be home until late. Don't wait up, I said. She bought it. Why wouldn't she? I'd never lied to her before. She told me she was going shopping for a few basics with the small allowance I'd given her, making a point to mention how responsible she was being. Nothing extravagant, she'd said, trying to sound mature. I nodded, even adding a little extra to her weekly limit as a reward for her sudden interest in actually cleaning the house. She left around 8:30 that morning. I watched from the window as she pulled away, already on the phone with one of her friends, no doubt to complain about her mean husband. At exactly 9 a.m., the moving crew showed up. A few of my guys from the current job site, good men, loyal, happy to make a few bucks on their day off. I'd already packed most of my personal stuff over the last week, moving it little by little on my lunch breaks to my new place across town. Just the stuff with blue tape, I told the guys. Leave everything else. They nodded, getting straight to work. I'd been methodical about it, only taking what was undeniably mine. The big TV? Hers. The sectional couch she just had to have? Staying. But my dad's old leather recliner? Coming with me. My workbench, the one I'd built with my own hands? Coming with me. My weights, my bike, the things that actually mattered? Those were coming with me. I'd already secured a new apartment closer to my job site, paid up 3 months in advance from the stash of money I'd been quietly putting aside for exactly this moment. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small one-bedroom with a balcony that overlooked a little park, but it was mine. Mine alone. Megan had no clue it even existed. While the guys from the site hauled the last of my blue tape belongings out to the truck, I walked slowly through each room one final time, making sure I hadn't left anything important behind. When I stepped into the bedroom, no, her bedroom, really, I looked at the row of designer shirts she'd picked out for me over the years. Shirts I'd never liked, never felt comfortable in. Stiff collars, flashy logos, shoes that pinched my toes bloody at weddings and business events. I left them all hanging right there. Let her have them. By noon, the guys had finished loading the truck. I did a final sweep of the house, checking corners, closets, under the sink. 7 years of my life were stacked up and ready to roll away. As I stood there in the empty, echoing living room, I felt this weird blend of grief and relief. Sure, there were good times here, back in the early days before the rot set in, but those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. In the kitchen, I laid out 3 things on the counter. First, the divorce papers, already signed by me, ready for her to finish and file. Second, a USB drive with every photo, receipt, message, and recording I'd documented, just in case she tried to spin a new story. And last, a letter I'd spent days writing. No rage in it, no cheap shots, just the truth. Line by line, I explained how her choices, her manipulations, and her total lack of respect had destroyed everything we had built. I ended the letter simply. I wish you well. I hope you find what you're looking for. Then I walked to the bookshelf, looked at that wedding photo one last time. Jesus, we looked so happy, so bright-eyed, so hopeful. I barely recognized those 2 people. I shook my head, set my house key and wedding ring down next to the divorce papers, and closed the door behind me. Then I turned off my phone. Climbing into my truck, I didn't look back. I drove straight upstate to Mark's cabin, 3 hours away. Mark had offered at the moment I told him what was going down. You'll need somewhere to decompress, man, he'd said. Somewhere she can't find you right away. He was dead right. I spent the whole weekend with a fishing rod in my hand and a beer in the other, sleeping like the dead, waking up to nothing but birds and breeze. No social media, no guilt, no games. Just quiet. When Sunday night rolled around, I finally switched my phone back on. 87 missed calls, 134 texts, 23 voicemails. Every single one of them from Megan or her circle of enablers. I listened to exactly one voicemail. Her voice was cracked with panic, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. James, please, you can't do this to me. I have nothing. The landlord says I have 30 days to move out because your name is on the lease and you've terminated it. I can't afford this place. Please call me back. See, what Megan never realized, because she'd never bothered to ask, never listened, was that I hadn't bought the house like she bragged to her friends. It was a rental. I'd been quietly saving for a down payment on an actual house. A home I dreamed of sharing with a partner who'd stand beside me, not on my back. The owner was a chill older guy. When I explained everything, he'd agreed to let me out of the lease early but give Megan 30 days to find a new place. I scrolled through some of the texts, each one more frantic than the last. James, please answer me. Where are you? You can't just abandon me like this. At least tell me where my things are. Did you really think I was texting with Bryce? It wasn't what it looked like. I'm calling the police if you don't respond. The landlord came by and said we're being evicted. What did you do? My attorney says what you did is illegal. Please, James, I have nowhere to go. I let the messages stack up while I sat at Mark's cabin, watching the sun set over the lake with a cold beer in hand. It felt almost surreal, like watching someone else's disaster unfold. Then came her friends, every bit as vicious as I expected. You pathetic excuse for a man. We're reporting you for domestic abuse. You'll regret this when we're done with you. Real men don't abandon their wives. We always knew you weren't good enough for her. I sighed and blocked them one by one. Then I opened up a fresh message to my lawyer. It's done. She's found the papers. Expect her to contact you tomorrow. Over the next week, Megan tried every angle. When I blocked her number, she started using her friends' phones. Unknown numbers lit up my phone day and night, the messages swinging wildly from threats to pity plays. Her feminist friend, who'd called me controlling, she stopped contacting me right after my lawyer sent her a cease and desist letter. Funny how quick the tough talk dried up once they faced actual legal consequences. Then, 2 weeks after I'd moved out, I got one final text. James, I get it now. I really messed up. You were right about everything. I've applied for 3 jobs this week. I'm staying with Alice, but she's already hinting I need to contribute to rent. I never realized how much you did for me. I took you for granted, and I'm so sorry. If you could just help me out until I get on my feet, maybe loan me enough for a security deposit on a small apartment, I'll pay you back. I promise. I've learned my lesson. For a second, I almost felt something. Then I remembered the look on her face when I caught her trying to sell my grandfather's watch, and every sleepless night came rushing back. I typed slowly and carefully. Sounds like you're finally experiencing the reality of being an independent adult. Congratulations on the personal growth. The divorce will be finalized in 60 days. Don't contact me again. Blocked her number for the final time. When I met with my lawyer later that week, she went over everything with me. James, she'd said, looking impressed, you've built the cleanest case I've seen in a long time. I couldn't leave anything to chance, I told her. The aftermath was about what I expected. Megan had scraped together a cheap lawyer who tried to paint me as abandoning her, tried to claim she'd supported my career, maintained our home. The judge, God bless him, literally laughed when my attorney laid out the evidence. Photos of the moldy fridge, screenshots of her online shopping binges, her texts begging me for money while bragging on Instagram about boss babe energy. In the end, we settled. I took on the debt she'd racked up, about $25,000 after I'd already paid down some of it. In exchange, she waived any claim to my retirement accounts and my future earnings. She got to keep her car, the one I'd paid off but had put in her name, stupidly thinking that would make her feel independent at the time. Her clothes, her ridiculous collection of handbags, and a few pieces of furniture she'd insisted on picking out, those went with her too. Fine by me. I got my freedom. It's been 6 months now since the divorce was finalized. Way faster than I'd even hoped for. Apparently, judges don't have much patience for someone who tries to commit identity theft against their own spouse and then cries about financial abuse. After the dust settled, I bought myself a little place, nothing flashy, just a 2-bedroom ranch about 10 minutes from my job site. 1/4-acre lot, enough space for a fire pit in the backyard, maybe a vegetable garden next year if I feel like trying. I paid for it with my yearly bonus plus the down payment I'd been squirreling away since long before Megan ever guessed I might leave. I walked in the first day, dropped my boots by the door, and just stood there breathing in the quiet. No designer throw pillows. No scented candles that gave me a headache. No live, laugh, love signs plastered over every damn wall. Just clean, comfortable furniture I'd picked myself, and the absolute freedom to leave my dirty work boots wherever the hell I pleased. The best part? Peace. No one following me around complaining about a water spot on the sink. No one calling me sexist because I asked for a bit of help around the house. Just me, living in a place that felt like home again. I've started dating casually. Nothing serious, not rushing into anything. I learned that lesson the hard way. I actually met someone at my buddy Mark's barbecue last month. Sienna, a nurse, works 12-hour shifts, told me on our second conversation that she'd rebuilt her own brake pads once because the mechanic tried to rip her off. Our first date was at a small diner, nothing fancy, just burgers and coffee. When the check came, she reached for her purse. Let me get half, she'd said, totally matter of fact. I blinked at her for a second, probably looked like a deer in headlights. You want to split the check? I asked, still trying to process that. Sienna laughed. Yeah, why wouldn't I? I work, you work, we're both adults. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.